The Republicans continue to astound me in how out of touch they are with reality. But one man who has made it his life's mission to raise people's standards at work is Matt Alley, who is our guest right now. Blue collar writer Matt Alley. He's a Teamster. He's entering his 20th year as a union organizer. He's a former writer for the United Mine Workers of America Journal. He's also a second generation union member whose father helped organize the last union coal mine in eastern Kentucky. He's got a lot of handles. You can call him Matt, but he likes blue collar writer, union thug, and the Appalachian refugee. So welcome to the show, Matt Alley. I think you might be muted. All right, try it now.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be here, guys. Well, let's just start off by saying Mitch is being Mitch again, huh? So what else can we expect? This unemployment debate is starting to now reach the point where I'm hearing, how can I put this? There are memes that are starting to roll through the comments of my page now and the tweet comments and whatnot, and they're regurgitating what their think tanks are saying, which is usually Coke based, So anyways, so let's let this thing roll and see where it goes, okay?
Yeah, I hear you. So it's amazing to me, right? So here we are in Kentucky. It's a right to work state. Maybe you can tell us what that is. But if we look around us, we're seeing, other states are cutting the unemployment insurance, additional funds that are going to help people out. Andy has been resistant to that, thank God, so far. But all around him, right, all these other right to work states are absolutely more than happy to make sure that people can't live with any dignity, right? And force them into a horrible labor pool. And, to hell with what their kids are going through with their parents and what they're trying to manage this kind of the impacts of COVID. Because of course, most kids can't get vaccinated. A lot of schools are, aren't really back. And if they're going to be out. So like, what are you doing for the summer? It's very challenging time to be a worker in these states. And you just don't see a lot of sympathy from these political leaders, from the Republican side of the aisle. Right. I mean, it seems to me incredibly clear that Democrats fight for workers, day in and day out, not always as well as we would like them to, right? There's a lot of corporate influence on both political parties, but we know very clearly that Democrats do a much better job, advocating for workers and fighting for workers. But one thing I wanted to just touch on really quickly: what is a right to work state? Why should we care about that? It's a phrase that's tossed around. It seems great. I mean, who doesn't want the right to work? Like, I want to be able to work. Sure. What does that mean, Matt?
Well, right to work for less is how we always refer to it as. It basically means if there's a union in your workplace, you do not have to pay dues, but you are protected by them. If it was a union, we have to fight for you. Basically, you're a free rider. You get everything for free without paying dues. You get the representation. And those resources that come from union dues pay for lawyers, pay for union organizers to grow your union, which that is a key. It was everything. If you have more power, more members, then you have more bargaining. Right to work also usually lessens things. Many stats have proven that in right to work states, we have higher death rates on the job. It busts unions. If you do, even if you don't work union, you're usually being benefited from unions being in your workforce, similar, or in your state, locally, wherever. We raise the bar. And without us, who's there to fight for you? Even via comparison of even the fear of us, let's say, wages go down. Everything, it just, well, look at the states that are right to work. The numbers are there. They do not prosper.
Yeah. And I'm completely biased. I've never been a member of a union, but my great grandfather helped found a Teamsters local in Centralia, Chehalis, Washington.
Mhm.
He was a milk truck driver, and then rose to, be one of the main organizers of that union, or leaders of that union. So it's kind of like a lot of stories from the family about the politics of the union, and being engaged in politics. So I am not an unbiased observer on this issue. I think it's critically important that workers organize, because corporations are very well organized, and the idea that they are going to just give you what's in your best interest just ignores common sense. So an issue that got a lot of attention recently was the Amazon strike in Alabama, where we saw some really, seemed like some pretty impressive organizing. I mean, heck, they got Joe Biden, the sitting president, to weigh in favor. Joe Biden's like, I don't care what the Washington Post says about me. I am going to, come out in favor of these Amazon workers who are trying to form a union. It didn't seem, didn't go the way a lot of folks wanted it to, and the workers voted that down. What's your take on that? What should we learn from that experience?
Well, this is a perfect example of the deck is always stacked against workers when they try to organize. Most people don't realize how hard the process is. I know when I got started as an organizer, I had one of those old labor dogs tell me, son, if you organize one in your career, you've had a great career. If you organize two, you're a rock star. And that is how hard it is, because I mean, people don't understand the process. First, you see if the workers are going to, if they want a union, they come to you, they say, we want to make change at our workplace. Then you go through the process of feeling things out from the union side, going, okay, is this worth the investment of union members' dues? Because, it has to come from somewhere to pay for things, to put organizers in, the lawyers there and whatnot. And then after you, let's say, gauge the workforce, you could have anywhere from 30 to 70% that want it. Then you get those on card, and then the company starts the anti-union campaign. They can have closed door meetings, captive audience meetings, where while at the workplace, they can do their propaganda the entire shift if they want to. There's no rules that say they can't. And what happened in Alabama, I wanted us to win so badly, but of course, I really kind of saw it coming, because you were fighting Amazon, and they were spending millions on anti-union consultants. And we've seen, everything that looked like now with the issues of who had access to the ballot box with, and there was everything that was just brought up. They changed the traffic lights so it would speed up faster, so that the workers can get out without having to come in contact with union organizers that could be standing legally on the street to talk to them or hand out information. And this is how it works. This is atypical. And I'm glad to see, actually, the only good thing that I could see came from this was the spotlight that was shown on it. And more people now realize, hey, these companies are just screwing these workers, while, like Amazon, for example, making billions in profit.
Yeah, yeah. I that thing about the traffic light amazed me. Right? It was like, wait, does Amazon control the traffic light in and out of their facility? Because that should be a public resource. So who did they get to change the timing so there wasn't enough time for the union organizers to actually talk to people on their way out of the factory, or not factory, the whatever their fulfillment center is. Very unfulfilling work at the fulfillment centers. But yeah, it was amazing to see the spotlight. Another issue that out of Alabama that seems to be getting a fair amount of attention is the United Mine Workers of America strike at the Warrior Met coal mine in Tuscaloosa County. It looks like some folks were just arrested during a protest outside that mine. What's the story with that issue, with that that mine in Alabama, and how would you compare mine workers across the country? I feel like I hear a lot about mine workers in Kentucky, and I don't hear a lot about unionized mine workers in Kentucky. And is that the right to work thing kind of like rearing its ugly head, or what's the state of the United Mine Workers of America these days?
Well, first, let me first say about this, about what happened in Alabama today. The last report I read from our friends at Yukon blog was those were 10 former veterans that were union members who were also arrested. It's, process that. What's going on in Alabama is they want, they made concessions to help the company get through the bankruptcy. That's a long, tangled story that the industry's been ripe with bankruptcies. And they were just wanting to go back to the wages that they had when they were in 2016, um, and have better than an 80/20 insurance. That's one of the things about being a coal miner is the insurance is a huge factor. There's more of a chance that you're going to need better insurance, especially in retirement, because of the sacrifices you're making upon your body. Some of the complaints for the premiums they're going to have to pay. So, that's another example of Warrior Met was just trying their best to be like, hey, we can't afford to do this, but our owners are making millions, but we can't pay you. And I believe there's a bonus involved too they got, but I'm not sure about that one. So the state of the UMWA in Kentucky, I believe the last union mine shut down in Western Kentucky that was still active, maybe 8 years ago. And I think you have about 11,000 UMWA retirees and widows that are still left in Kentucky, including my dad, who was a proud UMWA retiree. Um, the issue has been during the last coal boom, let's say, 10 years ago, they were hiring people. Basically, this is a huge problem for Kentucky and other industries too, is the subcontractor status. You're not an actual employee of the actual company. Um, and that makes it a whole lot harder to organize. But what made it even worse is you have, young men mainly, not being sexist here, but let's just be honest with the industry who was working in it, 18 to 30 some years old, making about an average of about 70 grand. You couldn't really sway someone that young with saying, hey, have you thought about your retirement one day? And they're like, yeah, okay, yeah, it doesn't matter. I got a 401k. We know how great those things are. That's said with great sarcasm. And they didn't care about medical. They're young, they're healthy, they're whatever. If they had the threat of another, even a hint of a union, hey, there was a raise. I knew a young man who was 19 years old, who was allowed to work all the overtime he wanted, and he cleared about 82 grand one year at 19 years old. So they basically used they used capitalism for all it was worth for them. Okay. And until they ran it bankrupt and they ran it dry and the industry vultured itself. And that's where the state of things are at. And right now, I don't have the stats in front of me to be about how many mines are still open, but I am positive to say that, sadly, the union stronghold that it used to be just was not there. And it had a lot to do with, like I said, the subcontractor status, capitalism at its worst of raising, throwing raises at them, not paying into things like retirement and healthcare. And yeah, that's where things have been at.
Yeah. And at the same time, you're seeing the kind of erosion of the kind of union influence in Kentucky mines. You're seeing this resurgence in black lung, right? And kind of some of
Yes.
the methods they're using. You're seeing more black lung, and you're seeing a lot of politics getting in the way of actually being able to say that it's black lung and holding people accountable for it, right? So
Right.
yeah, clearly our politicians, no friends of unions. None of the Republicans have ever done a thing worthwhile here in Kentucky for those guys. And it's sad to see that kind of once strong stronghold of union organizing is just not even really a factor anymore. Because clearly, the United Mine Workers are active and they are working for people. They just, might not be working for folks in Kentucky currently working, right? It's great that they're absolutely protecting their retirees, and that's a really important piece of the union. And it's astounding to me, right? Because I don't know, like, I want to talk about the PRO Act before we let you go, but I also want to just talk about just the dynamics of it, right? The cultural dynamics of the unions. I mean, I know, but I'm like a blazing liberal. Like, I know how important unions are. Like, I'm not a blue collar worker. I've never I haven't worked for a unionized workforce, but a lot of folks I know have, right? So I have a couple of folks who are in my family tree, very close on my family tree, and they have really good retirements because they were unionized workers. But to hear them talk, to hear them bash Democrats at every opportunity, to hear them bash unions, like at this point, right? Like wait a minute. I know you've got amazing health care. I know you've got a pension. And I know that all came to you because of your union. Why are you talking smack about unions right now? It is astounding to me. You think about this stuff, you write about this stuff, Matt. Why in the world are these folks proudly voting Republican when they are living off the sacrifices that their union made to help set them up for the long haul?
My personal experience, okay, and I have lived all over for this great state of it was Kentucky, and I have noticed where, let's say you were you were grandfathered into a union. Uh, you weren't, it was just a place that when it became your time and you couldn't find another job, you got the job at wherever, but it had been 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 generations since the original fight happened, when those workers initially had to fight the company and organize. And I hate to pick on Boyd County because I love my friends there, but they're the perfect example of when your income status keeps going up and up in the middle class. You move into the suburbs and you worry about, geez, I'm being taxed for this, I'm being taxed for that. The propaganda that the right wingers play in on this, going, well, your union dues are paying for these evil liberals, that want to, insert whatever scare tactic you want to, from abortion, whatever. And they majorly play in on it was economic mix of, look, I earned what I'm doing. There's no good people out there just won't get a job, and that's where we as union folks have to keep our membership engaged and remind them of where we come from, the fight that's still going on out there, and remind some folks, hey, you remember when you first got started and you were struggling? Somebody else is doing that too. And I think that has a lot to do with us as unions are going to have to keep re-engaging and re-engaging and re-engaging. And I will say this, I am so proud of these younger kids coming up right now because they get it. They see it. They understand the fight that they are looking around the jobs that, what are they going to work at to actually earn a real living now? Retail? Come on. Even though we can look at Walmart and other companies like that and say, hey, you can share the wealth and it's not going to hurt you. And there's no reason why these jobs cannot be union. But again, yeah, we're in a major cultural change right now. Membership, and I love it, is diversifying. 49% of union members are women now, and we need more women leaders that understand everything that they can bring to the table and make change. And this engagement, the education, it's no longer really, I love my moniker of blue collar rider, but Most of us now have at least a college degree, and that is most of, I forget the percentage, but I think it's getting close to 20% or higher have some degree now that is a union member. We represent quite a few white collar industries, including research, and that's another thing we're gonna have to work on is to be like, hey, it's not just for the people with the dirt underneath their fingernails anymore. It could be anybody, So
Yeah, that's a good reminder. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, and I do think it's totally right. I think unions need to re-engage their members throughout their entire lifespan, and like make sure folks remember like how you got to where you got. And it's like we have a hard and fast rule that we do not talk politics in my family because it like goes off the rails very quickly. And I have to bite my tongue an awful lot when I hear the Fox News propaganda coming back at me from these folks who have a wonderful life and a wonderful retirement only because of their union, right? So I just blame Fox. I blame Fox News for almost everything. Now that Rush Limbaugh's dead, I mostly just blame Fox. All right, so I wanted one last thing. Tell me what the PRO Act is. Why should we be supporting this? Why is it an important piece of legislation? And can it be passed in reconciliation?
okay, I'm just going to really simplify this. If we could get the PRO Act through, everything that you think should be fair about the process of unionizing, if you want one in your workplace, would happen. We would undo these right to work laws. And everything that would force the first contract, because that's another tactic. You might win, but the company can stall forever if they want to. Not really forever, but it just takes so much, you know what I mean, to get them to a first contract. You can even recognize a union in some cases. And basically, if we can get the PRO Act through, and again, I'm going back to most people don't understand it is not a truly democratic process. It would make it that way.
That's great. So is this, because I remember during the Obama administration, one of the big priorities of our friends in labor was card check. And that
Yes.
was like, a big piece of what they were pushing for. And if you don't remember, because you blocked it out of your memory, that's fine. And that's fully legitimate. Like, we had like 3 things we wanted to do, right? So it was like healthcare, climate, and card check. Although maybe Matt remembers it as healthcare, card check, and climate. Like the priorities we really wanted out of Obama, and Obama wanted them too, right? And his people all wanted them, but we barely got the first thing, right?
Yeah. And card check, I mean, it's so simple. Your signature is your vote on that authorization card. Very simple. And it's like, this is my vote. Why should we have to go to an NLRB election when I've technically already said I want this? And that's where the companies and the anti-union politicians want to have that long drawn out, basically voting twice process so they can go through the scare tactics and the anti-union propaganda and stalling and everything else. Yeah, AFCA, as we used to call it. I got to a point where that acronym was stuck in my head during those years. It's again, it's just so frustratingly simple, and we should already have it. And again, your signature, your vote. Very simple.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to throw it up to my co-host. I'm sorry. I've kind of like absolutely just, filibustered this interview. But Nate or Ken, or we now have Kimberly with us. So whoever has a question for Matt and on the face of the unions and what's going on with labor in Kentucky, feel free to pipe in.
I'm reclaiming our viewers' time.
Oh no, I have a question. I have a real question. So there's all this lip service about jobs that shouldn't be unionized because people with these jobs don't deserve any kind of certain wage because the job is super easy. So I mean, what do you say to people who like, oh, they don't need to unionize because they have this super cushy, easy job that it requires no intelligence to be on it. What do you say to people who say that they don't deserve a living wage?
All work is work. All work deserves dignity, to be treated with dignity. And depending on who your employer is, if it's McDonald's, they're making billions, so they can afford to pay that could handle union wages, a union retirement. You know, it's a huge difference between mom and pop, who might only be getting by on some number of dollars a month, versus the corporation. And I just think it's ridiculous. I mean, I don't care if you're a ditch digger or a doctor, you're a worker. You absolutely deserve to be treated with dignity, to make a living wage, especially if whoever's paying you can afford to do it.
Yeah, there we go. You know what? And if your business can't afford to pay workers a living wage and provide for their healthcare, well, you got a crappy business, and maybe you should go to business, and we'll find a better business. Like, I don't know. It's not like, oh God, every business is critical, but I do think it's really important that that I call on Kimberly right now because she's waving at me. Kimberly, what do you got?
Thank you, Aaron. I had to bring the beauty and the brains back to the show. No telling what you guys have been doing while I was gone.
Wait, we
But
don't
I
have
do
beauty
wanna
or
say,
brains? Yeah, it was an unwatchable mess without you, clearly,
you
Kimberly.
know what, Mr. Alley, I'm so sorry you had to contend with this in my absence, but I am here now. What I wanted to ask you, just jumping in.
Delta 8. What do you think about Delta 8?
Yes,
I'm
what
sorry.
do you think about Delta?
No, I'm sorry, Matt. That's a joke
What
from
I
last
want to know,
episode.
look,
And
Mr. Alley, he knows what Delta 8 is. I could tell by the little smile on his face. But that was not my question, Mr. Alley. My question is, because of unions and things of this nature, and these companies with their reluctancy to have their employees be unionized and all of these type of things, I'm seeing more and more companies go into hiring people as independent contractors. Is that some type of way to get around the wage factor, and is that some type of way to make sure that the people that work for them, they're responsible if they get hurt on the job, whatever the case may be? What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. I mean, it is the newest trick in the book, let's say. It's the same thing as subcontractors. Let's say, you hire a temp service, and that is your workforce looking at you, Toyota, and where those people don't really work for the company. So they're that liability of like, hey, they don't work for us really. We just provide jobs here. The gig economy you're talking about, yeah, independent contractors, it sounds great. But so many people out there are actually relying on this being their only jobs, even though they try to present these as like, oh, you can do this in your part-time or between, it was picking up those kids between your job and after school. It's not really like that for everybody. And yes, this is a way to where, you know, they cannot be unionized because, well, they're not actual employees. And the same thing with subcontractors, unless, I don't care if it's just one workforce working at one place that's subcontractors. According to labor law, you would kind of have to unionize the entire company of subcontractors, which makes it nearly impossible. And yeah, these are all dirty tricks that I'm seeing creeping more and more into Kentucky jobs. It was places is like, oh, we're going to put in a parts factory here, but you find out that it's not really working for the company. They're hiring through a temp service, a manpower service, whatever, a staffing firm. And essentially, you're at the mercy of two bosses then, let's say.
yeah, and then the one boss is being screwed by the other boss, right? Like, so that the manpower folks are answering to Toyota's bottom line numbers, right? Like, and but there's like the zero accountability for the workers. Yeah, it's like, oh, how could we make a horrible system worse? I know, let's do this. Yeah. So, I mean, and I love the jobs that are associated with Toyota, and I love, Martha Lane for bringing Toyota here, but damn it, without those right to work laws here in Kentucky, those folks would have a much better, a lot of people are making decent money, right? But in terms of the long term and their ability to kind of be powerful within their workplace, it's very diminished, unfortunately.
Right. But there's this thing about this place. This is happening like a 10-year turnover at the most. I mean, that's always been a problem there. Most workers only work in about 10 years and not really have anything when, that's not really a retirement job.
Right. Hey, so Matt, I wanted to just say thank you so much for coming on. Thanks for taking your evening and spending it with us. I want to let you know it's an open door. If there are issues that you feel like we need to cover and share with our viewers, we'd love to have you back, or just shoot us we're happy to add in a call to action to make sure that union concerns are being raised. I know that we are stronger as a society if we have stronger unions, so we want to be able to partner with you as much as possible to help send the messages out and mobilize folks. So thanks again.
Oh, thank you.